Today's segment of Sound Balming is brought to you by Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Body Care. I cannot express to you how much we love their products. Although we use them all year, as the weather gets colder, we need these products even more. The dreaded drop in temperature, the dryness, the itchiness, and the unnecessary flakiness is inevitable. Shea butter from Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Body Care is the only thing that works for my skin and hair needs. Not only do these products cure my dry skin, the whipped butter goes on smoothly and doesn't leave that uncomfortably thick, sticky residue. Bonus? It smells absolutely amazing. There are so many different scents to choose from too. Not only do they carry skincare products, there are products for authentic living, face, shower, hair and beard, spritzers and perfumes, and bath products. Let me tell you, we cannot even keep the stuff in the studio. The entire production team as well as all our children use Jimmy and Mary's product. Jimmy and Mary's take pride in creating quality, handcrafted products from simple ingredients for the entire family. Their products are made for all skin types and are 100% handmade, 100% vegan, and 100% cruelty-free. Skincare is important. Moisture is key, and keeping our skin and hair hydrated is essential. I cannot emphasize how much we trust Jimmy and Mary's for all of our skincare needs. Hurry on up to jimmyandmarys.com and check out their products. Did I mention service is fast and efficient too? Don't forget to mention that you heard about Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Skincare on Sound Balming. Use the discount code SOUNDBALM20 to get 15% off. That's SOUNDBALM20 for 15% off at Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Skincare.
Hey everybody, welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bombs. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, the star of the show,
Lamar Darnell Shields.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, whatever time of the day it is, whatever time zone you're in. Welcome to my show. I am Dr. Lamar Darnell Shields, the creator of Sound Bombing. And my goal with this show is to introduce you to people with ideas that will help you unlock your full potential. I want you to know that you have the power within you to do something great, and I know that you will. Just like our last week's guest, Dorintha Nemeth. And Dorintha discussed women's empowerment. And let me just tell you, ladies, I saw the emails and I saw that you really enjoyed that conversation. And so Dorintha, thank you for sharing with us. And today is not going to be anything different because I have a powerful guest who is sitting there waiting patiently. But you all know, if you are old to the show, shout out to all my old heads who are there waiting and ready to get comfortable in their comfortable position. If you are new to the show, welcome, and thank you for joining me. I want to let my new heads, my new bombers know that whenever we start our show, we always like to create some positive energy. So what I always ask my guests to do, and I want to invite my guests who are sitting there patiently waiting to find a comfortable position. And I want you to put your feet on the floor and your palms are facing up while we're talking about our palms. Got to send a shout out to my girl, Mary Benson, for Jimmy and Mary's. I love this. Let me just tell you this. I love this. I know they're one of our sponsors, but since we're talking about palms, you know, we get a little ashy. If you have melanin in your skin, you know what I'm talking about. We get a little ashy. So I want to shout out to Jimmy and Mary's. I love this new one. It's called waiting till I saw the sun. And if you anything like any of these black and brown mamas out there who used to go old school, Katara probably know what I'm talking about. Where you little lick your fingers right there. Y'all don't know what I'm talking about. We're going to come back to another time of the day. But I'm putting some Jimmy and Mary's shea butter on my skin as I put my palms on my lap and the palms are facing up. And as my third graders used to say to me, sit up, sit back, roll your shoulders back and relax, and everything is calm, everything is soft, your face is soft, your jaw is soft, and we're going to do our 3 breaths. And what that does for our show is that it really creates the foundation, it really creates some positive energy in the space, because I want to bring you nothing but positive vibes. So your eyes are closed, your palms are facing up in positions of receiving, and we're going to relax our face, relax our jaw. We're going to start with our 3 breaths, and we always inhale through our nostrils, our nose. So we inhale, hold it for 3 seconds. Exhale out of our mouths. This time we go a little deeper for 5 seconds. Inhale. Hold it for 5 seconds. Exhale. Now we're going to go a little deeper. We're going to go 10 seconds, and we're going to inhale. We're going to make ourselves big like a pufferfish. Inhale. Everything is soft. Hold it for 10 seconds. Exhale. And what is that called, bombers? That is called the breath of life. So thank you for allowing me to bring some positive vibes and positive energy into your space. And let me just tell you, this meditation, this practice is so in line with our guest today, because she is going to share some amazing things that she's been doing for quite some time, and she's going to share her amazing story. But we are in a moment, as the great Angela Davis would say, radical reckoning with respect to race. White people are waking up to the vast difference in our experience compared to our friends, neighbors, and co-workers of colors. What do I mean? Our histories are different and our present experiences are different. Even when we live in the same neighborhood, go to the same schools, work in the same buildings. But my white brothers and sisters are seeing how truly segregated our lives really are. See, real integration in our schools, our neighborhoods, our churches, and our work lives has failed. My great teacher, who I never met, but I studied him a lot, Malcolm X, said, the most segregated time on this planet is at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning everywhere. You see, but it's not easy. Our Black, Indigenous, and people of color often have vastly different experiences than our white brothers and sisters, even when we're having these conversations. It is for this reason that our next guest, Katara McCarty, created the Excel app, which she will tell us about in a minute. But from our realities of abandonment by her biological mother, being a biracial woman and growing up in a Black home, Katara realized early in her life that the color of her skin mattered. After becoming a single mother at 19 and finding the courage to leave an abusive relationship, Katara became an entrepreneur, holding leadership positions both in the for-profit and the non-profit sector. Today, Katara is a sought-after coach, author, podcast host, and dedicated to cultivating brave spaces where all Black, Indigenous, women of color belong. And as a Black woman, she is committed. Did you hear what I say? She is committed to amplifying the richness of BIWOC and their stories, while also advocating for and providing emotional well-being and resources for BIWOC through her app, Excel. Katara, welcome to the show, homegirl. How are you doing?
Oh my gosh, I'm so good. What an opening. I love that we got to do some breathing before we got started, just to center ourselves.
Well, I'm just showing out for you.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just showing out for you. No, actually, I do this on every show, but it is so in line. Well, I'm so honored that you decided to hang out with us today. I know you have a busy schedule, and I'm so excited. First of all, I love the glasses. Love the frames. I see you fly over there. I like
Thank
that.
you.
I like that you
Thank
fly
you.
holding it
Got my
down.
vibe. Got my vibe going on over here. Trying.
Got your vibe. But let me just tell you, my producer, Nicole, was so excited about bringing you on. Of course, being a woman of color, she is, being of African descent and also Austrian descent, she can definitely relate to your story. But I said, Nicole, why don't you do the interview? She was like, no, I don't like to be seen. I don't like, I'm like, okay. So I will ask all the questions of our good friend Katara, and I will share them with her because I'm sure her experiences, just like yours, are very similar. Before we get started, let our listeners know where you are calling in from, and let us know how you are doing. I love to check in with people to see how they're doing, how their spirit is during this pandemic, because a lot of us are struggling. And so I want to know how you are doing, and let us know where you're calling in from.
Yeah, I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Naptown in the building.
Naptown in the building, holding it down in the Midwest. So we're from Indianapolis, and I'm doing, that's a loaded question.
Yes.
I think that it changes not just day by day, but it feels like it changes even moment by moment. I feel like, just like my app Exhale, it feels like the Black community, the collective, our community is kind of holding its breath for the next onslaught, for the next traumatic death that might hit our news feeds. And so today I'm doing okay. After that breathing exercise that you led us all through, I feel a little bit more grounded and centered today. This morning. That's why breathing's so important. Coming back to our breath helps center us. But, right now in this moment, I have to give it a thumbs up. I'm doing all right.
Well, I am so glad that you're all right. I'm right next door in the Chi. Love Indianapolis. Spent a lot of time there working, speaking. Shout out to my good friend, Sky Berger, who's out there, a great facilitator on trauma-informed care. And my good friend, Eric Steele, who also is in Indianapolis. So I'm a neighbor of yours, even though I live on the East Coast right now. And so I'm excited that you are here. After reading all the information that you shared, also my mom is of mixed roots. We had this whole conversation about being a woman of color, having different hair texture, about being treated a certain way because of her color, of her skin. It's just so much I want to unpack. And because I'm raising Black and brown girls in my own house, there's a lot of things I want to talk about. But let's get started with your story. Tell us a little bit about your background. Who is Katara McCarty before, or should I say, who was, and then who is she? Because you've had this great transition with what Nicole shared with me about your story. I get a chance to do a lot of research on my own, from watching videos, from talks to other people that have interviewed you. So we, as the athletes say, we go hard in the paint. So before you talk about who is, tell us who was this 19-year-old teenager having this child, life shifting, and then we're going to talk about the transition. And then again, I put myself on the spot with a breathing activity. Before you leave, you will be taking us through one of your own. So let us know, who was this woman?
Well, I have to throw it back to 1972, which wasn't that long ago. Yeah. I know some of your listeners will think 1972 was a long, long time ago, but it wasn't. 1972 is the day I was born, and my white mother had me at the hospital, like most mothers, and decided after she gave birth to me to leave me at the hospital. She abandoned me there. She didn't go through the process of finding an adoption agency. She just was overwhelmed. And now I know, finding out as an adult, the full story, the full narrative. My father was Black, she was white. It was 1972. She was being pressured and really feeling that from her family, that she could not bring a Black baby home. She was young and was still living with her white parents, and they lived in a small town here in Indiana, and it was just absolutely unacceptable to, back then, to really even have a relationship with someone outside your race, marry outside your race, let alone have a child with someone outside of your race, specifically if you were white. And so she abandoned me at the hospital. I went into foster care, and fortunately, my chart came across this woman's desk, and she read through it, and they were having a hard time placing me because I am biologically biracial. And, white families really didn't want to take on a Black baby. And Black families were actually a little hesitant as well. And so she had a niece that had been talking about adopting another little girl. She had already adopted one and wanted to adopt another. And so she called her niece and told her, hey, this chart just came across my desk. Would you be interested? And her niece said yes. And she said, there's something you need to know. She is biracial. Her mother is white. Her dad is Black. And her niece said, I don't care. Drop that baby off my house. So I got dropped off to 707 East Jefferson Street in Kokomo, Indiana in 1972. And was raised by a beautiful Black woman. She was never married, which was kind of really kind of a forerunner in her time to even attempt to adopt as a single Black woman. And she did that. And her mother, they had pulled their resources together to purchase a home. So she lived with her mother. Her mother lived with her. And so I was raised by two amazing Black women in a Black neighborhood, went to a Black community center. All my neighbors were Black. All my friends are Black. And
wow, you said Black like 20 times.
Blackity black. There weren't, and I say that because there weren't little girls that looked like me in my neighborhood. And so I knew pretty early on that I was different. My grandmother would hot comb my sister and my mom and her hair. And I would beg my grandmother to hot comb my hair. And she would say, Sissy, you got that good hair. We're not going to hot comb your hair will fall out. And so there were little things that I knew pretty early on that I wasn't quite like everybody else in my neighborhood. And so I say that because there was this sense of not quite belonging and kind of searching for that sense of belonging, and then going to school and trying to make friends, little white girls telling me like, get along on the first day of school, and then to go home and come back the next day. And I remember it's seared into my memory in second grade, a little white girl came back, we connected, and she came back the next day and she said, my mommy said we can't be friends because you're Black. And so there was this navigating childhood where I felt, while the Black community embraced me and loved me, my family loved me, had a great childhood, inside of me there was always this searching for belonging. And that led to me being in a relationship at a young age, getting pregnant at a young age, having a baby at 19. And that was a real awakening for me, having the nurse put my first daughter, Bria, into my arms, and having a moment with her, just her and I, realizing like, man, I am not just responsible for myself anymore. I'm responsible for another little human being. And so really making some shifts and changes, choosing to leave an emotionally and what was becoming a physically abusive relationship, and really making some pivots in my life. It was a very defining moment for me. So I would say that, growing up, just trying to find where I fit, find where I belong. I was petite, I was little, I was biracial. I lived with a Black woman who has later come out as gay. And so I got a lot of...
so you was getting hit with every...
Oh, yeah.
You wasn't Black enough to be the Black folks. You wasn't white enough to be the white folks. Your hair texture was in such a way that Black girls didn't like you. And the white girls like, well, it looks like ours, but then when it gets wet, it's a little different. And then now you have a mother who's come out. So you were dealing with a whole slew of challenges at a very young age. And then I'm sure struggling with all the other things that are now raising a kid. It's interesting as I listen to you, I'm thinking about my mother's story. So my mother's been hanging out with me a lot lately. We've been going on these great walks. She's back in Chicago now. And we've been having these conversations. When you look at you can see my hair, curly hair. My mother she was on the porch talking to my son's friend who's Native American, and Nicole, who's African, but then also has these Austrian roots. And I'm listening to these stories, these three women with all this different hair texture, all these different hues. And one was Native American, 100% Native American. One was African, and then one was white, then had African American roots. It just blew me away. Listen to that. And so as I'm listening to you, I hear the theme of abandonment, but it reminds me of the story. And I don't know if you saw the film. It's called White Lie. And it's about the young lady. It's on Netflix. It is literally your story, very similar. A young girl who grew up Jewish her entire life. Now, my kids and I watched it. My daughter looking at me like, my daughter calls me Baba, which means father in Swahili. She's like, Baba, come on now. Look at this girl. This girl is black. Come on now. Like, you can see as she's getting older, she was getting darker and darker and darker. And they told this lie because if you understand real cultural Jewish roots, there's a strong connection to you have these Jews that are from Africa that are very, very dark. And so they told this story. The dad showed an image of his grandfather. They said, oh, she's dark like my grandfather. So they started telling this lie. But when homegirl got a little older, Katara, and she started to notice, and then she had a biracial boyfriend who was on, it was in the film, and he says, girl, I tried to tell you this when we were dating. He says, white folks just gonna keep telling lies, and this dude is like you, biracial, and he was like, I tried to tell you that you were biracial like me, but she didn't want to believe it. Then she got hooked up, went to Georgetown, and so she hung out with all the black folks at Howard. So then this beautiful part about who she was. It was if you have not seen it, I encourage you to see it, probably bring you to tears. It was very emotional, just like you. Her mom was white, dad was black, mom worked, and I don't want to give the whole story away, but worked in the black community and I want to say in New York, and met this guy and just lived this lie. And she had a reckoning with her biological father, her biological father and her father who raised her. And I think it really hurt the father who raised her, because he sort of kind of knew what was going on. And so it was this level of abandonment. Like, I want to unpack that word. So when I'm hearing you share your story, at a very young age, you were being abandoned. You were abandoned by your mom. And then there was this level of abandonment from your partner that you had your child with, and then also trying to figure out where you fit in, abandonment with the white girls, abandonment with the black girls, and then sort of just trying to fit in. How does someone like you who's doing this work, how do you handle abandonment right now? Because the reason why I'm going this deep, because a lot of times, when we do our work, when you and I work in Qatar, we're speaking all over the country, and we share the things that are going on with us. And a lot of times people look at us and they're like, well, you don't know because you've never gone through anything. Oh, you haven't done these things. And I think it's always important for people to feel us, of who we are. And so when we share those stories of our authentic self, as Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about in his work, being very, very authentic and okay with who you are, because your story is really, really going to elevate and make those black and brown girls that are out there, and boys who are trying to figure out where do they fit in. So how do you handle abandonment, and how do you help people who feel abandonment to continue to build those relationships? Because some people just run away.
Yeah. First of all, I have to say, I've never felt abandoned by the Black community. I actually felt like they're the community that stepped up to raise me, to take care of me while I was bullied and picked on, and there were prejudices there because of, like you talked about, texturism, featureisms. I'm have closer proximity to whiteness because of the way I look. While there was prejudices there, I always felt like that was home for me, because of my mother and because of my grandmother and because of the family I was raised in. And really I identify as a Black woman. So, which is kind of interesting to navigate the world in a biracial body, but identifying as a Black woman. Abandonment is an interesting thing. I think that I'd had to go back and journey back to really use my internal resources and the power of our imagination to really go back to the place where it all began, where the abandonment began, which was with my mother, my biological mother. I really begin to unpack that and understand that while I was carrying a sense of abandonment, I wasn't abandoned because of me, because I had a Black dad, or because I wasn't lovable, or because I wasn't worthy. I mean, I was a little infant. Like, what infant isn't lovable, right?
I know.
And but I was abandoned because of her stuff, because of her issues. I've later found out that my biological father didn't even know. I was able to meet him. It'll be 2 years this January. Was able to meet him. He didn't even know she was pregnant.
And how was that meeting? How was that meeting?
Oh my gosh. Lovely. It was lovely. We met because of 23andMe. I did the DNA test thing, sent it off, and I told my husband, I said, I'm gonna meet my biological family. And that's exactly what happened. I was able to connect to my bio family, my white family, because of Ancestry.com did that. And 23andMe, I was able to meet my biological father. And he had no idea. They had a fling for a couple of weeks, and it was fun. And he was married, and he ended it. And he went on and continued his relationship with his wife, and they went on to have children. Disconnected from my mom, and my biological mother never even knew that she was pregnant or had me. So something that he said to me that really helped to help me reclaim my story, begin to rewrite my story, and to bring another level of healing was if I would have known that she was pregnant with you, if I would have known that she didn't want to raise you, I would have come and got you. I would have raised you. And realizing when you zoom out and really see the full narrative, it's not because of who I am that I was abandoned, right? It's not because I'm a bad apple. It's not because I'm this awful person. It's because of the adults that were in my life, the decisions that they were making, the path that they were choosing because of their own stuff, right? We all have our own baggage because of their own hurt, their pain, their trauma, the pressure that she was feeling from her family. She made decisions that left me abandoned. And being able to separate that and understand I am dealing with abandonment, not because of my stuff.
So how did you get there though, Katara? Because that sounds, somebody's listening and says, that sounds really good. Mm-hmm. And I applaud her, but I'm not there yet. And you know, when you talk about relationships, be it intimate relationships, man and woman, woman and woman, man and man, or relationships when it comes to mother, son, daughter, what have you, that issue of abandonment always comes up. And I'm loving how you're articulating that, but I want you to walk us through how you are able to rewrite your story, because you talk about rewriting and reclaiming, because many of us right now feel this level of abandonment. You think about what's taking place with COVID right now. If you and I were brother and sister and mom was in the hospital, we couldn't really get there to see her. Level of abandonment. COVID it's almost like a illness where you feel abandoned because you're by yourself. If you're single and you have nobody that can come into your space. I'm loving how you got, but I want you to talk us through how you got to that point, because someone needs to hear that there's somebody who's about to walk out of a relationship because he or she, they're reflecting on abandonment. Their mom left. They're reflecting on abandonment of a program in Indianapolis that they were a part of, that the money ran out and Mr. Jackson left, a level of abandonment. They went to a church and there was a minister, a priest, or an imam who assaulted them, and a level of abandonment. I was being assaulted, but there was some connection. Walk us through those steps of how you were able to overcome that. And then what are some things that my listeners, and what are some things that we should be asking ourselves as it comes to this level of abandonment, so we don't walk out of people's lives?
Yeah, I think that for me, it started with journeying home to myself. Really, and doing that through like my app, like some emotional well-being practices, which is practicing mindfulness, getting still. We're so busy. We pack our calendars full that we don't have time to really pull back and be with ourselves and to ask ourselves, how are you doing? How's your soul? How's your heart? To really show up for ourselves in that way. And so I would say, like, I had to get still, had to carve out time every morning when Bria, my oldest daughter, and even after I had my second daughter and was married, I would get up in the morning before they got up. And I created this room, I called it my prayer room. And I would go downstairs in my jammies and I would sit in this comfy chair and I would just close my eyes and pray / meditate and really be still and really check in with myself and really get curious about myself. Why do I do that? Why do I get so angry? Why do I act so small in those situations? Really getting curious about myself. And I would say for me, which is why I created the app, it's really practicing emotional well-being, getting in tune with yourself, coming back to yourself. There's so many ways to do that through journaling, meditation, guided visualizations, like really unpacking this internal world of ours and really journeying back home to ourselves. And once I did that, I remember meditating. I was at this women's event. I remember meditating, and the lady that was leading the meditation that said, you can stay on your mat as long as you want. And I sat on my mat, and I remember going back. It was like, as I was sitting there in my mind, I went all the way back to the day I was born. And I realized, hold on, I was there. My 48-year-old self was standing, looking at my bio mom holding me, but I was there. When I went into foster care, in my imagination, I journeyed to like this, like I imagined me being a baby in foster care. I was there. My 48-year-old self was there. Being pregnant, having an emergency C-section at 19, being frightened that I could die and maybe lose my baby. I'm like on the surgery table, and I journeyed back, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's like an out-of-body experience. You hear people.
Was there.
Yeah,
we weren't abandoned. Yeah. We weren't. And while that physically happened, I had to come to this realization that actually I never abandoned me.
I love that. I love that you said that I've never abandoned me. So you talked about, and I think that words are so powerful. I'm constantly talking about affirmations and speaking truth to power. So we're going to talk about your app in a second. So you talked about your relationship with your dad. What is the relationship with your mom's side of the family, and where are you with that?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. It's still, it's very much metaphorically like how it was when I was born. My white family found out about me. I reached out to them, and they didn't want to have anything to do with it. They had a lot going on in their lives, and it was too much. My aunts, I have 2 aunts, and they just didn't want to meet me at the time. I found out that my biological mother passed away when she was 51 years old. So I've had an opportunity to meet one of my family members on that side, and it's my half sister. She's also biracial.
Mom loved those other folks. That's the one thing you know. Mama loved.
So she was actually raised by my biological mother, and so her and I have met, and we're developing a relationship, and it's been really beautiful to hear her talk about how my mom told her about me, and that she had another daughter out there, and that, their relationship was challenging. And so, it's such a stark difference. When I met my bio dad, he's like, when can we meet? Let's have lunch. We went out that week, we met, he brought me flowers. He wanted me to meet my brothers, wanted me to meet all of his family. When are you coming to the family reunion? Like, it has been this open arms, love and acceptance, and him owning his stuff, right? Like his decisions back then, and had to sit with what happened as a result of some of his decisions that he made back then, and has had to reckon that in his own heart and own life. But because he didn't even know, we've been able to kind of pick up, and there's nothing to really, for me, I I don't have to forgive or try to get over like, oh, you did this to me. He didn't know either. And so it's been a really interesting, kind of a pretty stark difference between the two families, which is, you know, very metaphorically too, like what has kind of happened in my life, right? I've had this overwhelming love and acceptance and care from the Black community, my mom and my grandmother who took me in, right, and raised me, and compared to, you know, my white family being like, this is a really bad time for you to show up. You know, this is,
this really reminds me of the movie, the Netflix. It's a great film, and what's ironic, the little girl's last name is Schwartz, and for those that understand, Schwartz actually means black. And so listening to you is very similar, and she was really embraced by her African-American roots, the Black side of the family and community, really the community. So I just want to just thank you for sharing that. So with all of that being said, and all the things that happened in your life, was this app that you created, Excel, was the inspiration behind the Excel app the things that took place in your life, or did the inspiration from the Excel app come from somewhere else?
Yeah, I would say the inspiration, you know, I think that we are on this path and on this journey in our life. And if we're able to really look inward for answers versus looking outside of ourselves, we'll always find our way. And
let me stop you right there. Why do people typically look outside? And I like what you said. If we
it's
look
easier.
On the inside.
It's easier. It's hard. It's hard to take an internal journey, because then there's, you know, you have to hold yourself accountable. You have to look at your pain. You have to stare your truth in the face. You have to really accept what is. And sometimes that's really hard and painful to do, but we are absolutely equipped to do it. But it's painful sometimes. And it's a journey, and that's, sometimes the journey's longer, right? It takes a little bit longer to take that road versus let me just find this boo over here that I think is going to meet all my needs, or let me just, you know, take this job that I think, you know, if I have this title and if I make this amount of money, it's going to, you know, be the answer to all my,
or let me just take this pill, or let me just drink this drink, or I tell people, we talk about green drinks all day, but you can put all this green drink into you but if you're not taking care of these other parts of yourself, just drinking a green drink with protein and all that does nothing. If this right here has not shifted, your belly is okay, but this right here has not shifted. And so you're right. You know, I really wanted you to talk about that. Why do people then reach out on the outside? And you've given some great examples. So now let's go internal. Let's talk about this app and what does it do?
Yes. So the app is an emotional well-being app. I got the idea, actually was meditating. You know, everything happened with COVID. The news was saying, you know, the Black community was being impacted disproportionately because of pre-existing conditions. And, you know, I'm like screaming at the TV. I'm like, that's not the full narrative. We have pre-existing conditions because of systemic racism, period. We don't have pre-existing conditions because our skin's brown, right? Like there are reasons. The systems of oppression is the reason. So I'm like screaming at the TV, like, tell the full story. Tell the full story.
You know, isn't it interesting about stories? Because, you know, when stories aren't complete, then what we typically do, we as the average person, now my research hat comes out, is that when the story is not complete, Katara, you know what we do? We add stuff to it. So then there's something wrong with me. And I love how, going back to you, when you said, I didn't abandon myself. Like they abandoned me, but I didn't abandon myself. So what you did was you taking ownership. And so by you saying, watching the news, because my 17-year-old daughter was watching yesterday, she was watching some show, why are people of color getting COVID at a higher rate? And again, if the story is not complete, then it's all these other things. And listen, we already got negative stuff saying about us. So we don't need another thing to throw on. It's like talking to you as a Black woman. Are you going to throw another thing on me I don't get right, or another thing that I'm not doing right, or another thing I'm saying? And so you're right. When you said you were watching this and then you're screaming at the TV and you were like, I got to shift this narrative.
So aggravated, right? Because as a part of the Black community, I know why there was disparities, right? I know why. And so that, and then the Ahmaud Arbery video, his killing, hit our news feeds. Then we heard about Breonna Taylor. Then we saw, the killing of George Floyd. And while I know, and the Black community, we know this happens in our community. We know this happens to us. We face racism, microaggressions, anti-Blackness every day. As soon as we leave our house, we're experiencing it, right? But to see it in real time in our news feeds, as a 48-year-old woman, I'd never experienced that really in my lifetime, as far as like back to back, right? And it had a whole nother level of trauma that it brought and triggered in our lives. And so I was feeling this overwhelmingly sense of hopelessness. I was feeling like the Black community was literally hemorrhaging. And, I was asking myself, like, what can you do? What can you do, Katara? What can you do? And I just kept asking myself that every day. And I realized, like, wait a minute, like, you're a coach. You've been coached. My husband and I used to pastor a church. Like, I've given people resources to really help them discover their truest, most authentic self, and really help with my coaching practice, giving my clients these internal resources and tools to manage stress, to unpack their trauma. And I thought,
and what were some of those tools? What were just some of those tools?
So just guided visualizations, breath work, meditations, helping them understand what limiting beliefs are, how they hold them back, internal critic, saboteur, like giving them those resources, helping them understand what their values are, their vision as a person, like what's your purpose, right? All of these things that I'm giving clients, and that as a coachee, I've had a coach, right, that I've been given myself. I'm like, what if I created an app specifically for Black, Indigenous women of color and those gender identities that are oppressed by racism and misogyny? What if I gave them these resources in an app where, when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling this trauma, what if you had something that right at your fingertips that you could pull up and access easily, an easily accessible resource for us, by us? And I got the idea at the end of April. I ran upstairs. I told my husband.
Sounding like Solange over there. Be real clear. This is for us, by us.
Yeah, I wanted, because what was happening during that time, I was reaching for my phone and the apps that I had downloaded. And what was happening in real time was I needed to hear somebody that got where the Black community was.
Explain that, because I don't think people may get that. I get it. And I love that you're saying, this is no disrespect to any culture, race, gender out there. I love that you're saying that they were getting it, but they weren't getting it enough that would get to me. It's something about your voice, your language, not understanding the culture. What weren't you getting from these other apps that you said, this is the app right here for women that look like me, women who have my stories, women that do what I do? What weren't you getting? And then how is your app different from the things that you weren't getting?
I wasn't getting someone on the other end that was saying, I see, I hear, I understand where you're at right now, as a Black woman, as a brown woman, as a woman of color. We literally in Indianapolis had Deshaun Reed killed, right? I'm in downtown Indianapolis, right here.
I remember that case, yeah.
My kids were eating Sunday dinner at my house and leaving my house. I could not rest until I got the text that they were home. It was overwhelming stress like I've never experienced. I mean, to be super vulnerable, my hair started falling out.
And that's what people don't get that. I remember Katara, thanks for your transparency. I remember when Amadou Diallo was killed in New York, and Bruce Springsteen, who was American as American Pie, he wrote a song called 41 Shots, American Skin. And I remember when I used to give these workshops, I always use music. And I talked about who loves Bruce Springsteen. They raised their hand. But when I played this song, 41 Shots, American Skin, and he's literally in the song, he's narrating this woman named Lena. I never forget it. Every morning she was on her knees, putting her son's coat on and zipping the coat up and having a conversation with him and saying, if the police tells you to stop, you stop. You don't run. A 7-year-old boy. And so for those people that don't understand that there are people that look like you and I, and there are people who don't look like you and I that may be poor, but because of poverty, there's some other challenges that we are so concerned about our children being out. And you and I have very similar background. We got great kids. Kids got access to stuff that you and I didn't have. But that still does not mean that they will not get caught up in whatever that it is out there. So to hear you, a woman who's a coach, who has been training women across the globe, who's created an app, who now in your own house, you are so concerned about what's happening to your kid. And then you got to inspire and motivate other people when you also holding on to your own, I don't want to say stuff, I don't want to say, holding on to your own stuff.
Well, and that's exactly why I reached to those apps, because they were helpful a year ago.
But it stopped.
Immediately there was a complete disconnect, because I'm reaching for these apps and they're like, oh, well, have a lovely day. And I'm like, do you understand that my community is hemorrhaging right now? Do you understand? Like, Breonna Taylor is literally a few months younger than my oldest daughter. Like, they were born the same year. My daughter's name is Bria. I have a cousin, her daughter's name is Brianna. Like, this is a real mom with real grief. And all of that was just, there was such a disconnect. And I just put my phone down. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I'm feeling this disconnect, how many other people, how many specifically women are feeling this disconnect as well? And I had to do something about it. And I got the idea in April. We went to work really right away. I'm not an app developer. I wouldn't call myself a tech person. I'm 48 years old. Sometimes I have to ask my daughters how to do the latest update on my iPhone.
Everything.
I don't even know.
Same here.
Something's going on with my computer. Can you help me fix it?
Do your kids crack on you all the time about yourself? How you take pictures and, my kids are I always tell people, if you want to take a good photo, you get somebody under the age of 21. And then, so we're in the same community.
They keep me in line. So
you have no tech background, but you have a mission and new vision. I think that this is important for people to hear. So keep going.
Yeah, so my why was really the why and the need that I saw in my community and that I had. It was a need I had as well. And realizing, getting on webinars, I was really connecting with specifically Black women activists, anti-racism educators, getting on their webinars, really like connecting with women and realizing over and over and over again, this was a theme. That we have to learn how to manage our stress, our anxiety. We have to learn how to access tools that get trauma out of our bodies, because it's making us sick. The stress, the anxiety, the holding our breath, the trauma is making us physically sick. And so those themes kept coming up and I'm like, we got to do something. And so my husband and I, my girls, I just started Googling, like, how do you create an app if you're not an app developer? And I found this platform. My youngest daughter, we got a model and we took photos and then I started writing meditations, my own meditations, writing guided visualizations, researching and asking my daughters to record with me, reaching out to my recording studio that helps me with my podcast and telling them what I was doing and then gifting all of the production. Like they were like, we're going to pro bono this. We love you. We love who this is for. We want to back you. Reaching out to my PR firm. They loved the idea. They said, we're going to pro bono this. We're not going to charge you. We want to get the word out about this. So everything was kind of like, yes, do this, do this, do this. It was like confirmation after confirmation. Got to work, wrote the meditations, the breath work, the guided visualizations, the coaching talks, recorded them, sent them off, got them back, and just developed an app and launched it August 25th. And we launched it with the idea that it would be a freemium package. Some of the pages would always be free to download, free to access. And then some of the pages will be via subscription based. And then Jacob Blake got shot. And I heard his mother and specifically his sister speak about his shooting. And I got my team together and I said, we launched on Tuesday. I think his shooting happened that weekend before. And I said, we're just going to open the app. It's just going to be free. So since, a few days after, I think it was the next day, August 26th, we just opened the entire app. It's free to download. It's free to access all the pages. Eventually, because I am an entrepreneur, it will be paid. There will be some paid pages.
Which is not uncommon. I'm like the Shark Tank guru. I watch all these shows. So Katara, what can users of Excel expect, and what are some of the societal needs is Excel addressing?
Yeah. So I think what's unique about the app is it's, Black women, it's brown and Black women, me, my daughters, eventually would love to have more voices on the app. It's speaking directly to us. So when I'm leading meditations, guiding people through meditations, I'm speaking directly to us and our the systemic racism that we face, the microaggressions that we face. I specifically talk about that. I talk about what it's like to weave through life in brown and Black bodies and how that's different and actually causes stress and anxiety for us. So I speak from a place of, I know what it's like, right? And really connecting with the audience. I think representation is very important toward our path of healing. Sometimes in wellness spaces, there isn't representation, and those spaces can potentially be harmful for us. And so it was really important for me to have an exclusive space where Black and brown women can come to. And I won't call it a safe space because, I'm still learning. When we talk about non-binary, gender non-conforming, I still say girl and she, and, and so I
don't like the word safe space either. I call them courageous spaces.
I call them brave spaces.
Brave and courageous, because you have to be brave and courageous to admit what you don't know, what you don't know. And then when you admit it, people can't use that against you. I think I posted that yesterday. When you admit your insecurities publicly, then people can no longer use that against you. How is it working with your daughters? I love that, because my children are involved in many things that I do for music and art. How is it working with them? And what do they think about their mom?
Oh my gosh, we're such a close family anyway. It was lovely. Actually, everything that was happening during that time, creating the app became, I've been saying this a lot, that my soul felt dehydrated in the spring and summer.
That right there, as Oprah would say, we need to pause right there, put on the emergency brakes, and put on the hazard sign. You got to repeat that one more. You said my soul was exhausted.
Yeah, it was dehydrated.
I mean, there we go. My soul was dehydrated. Explain to me what that actually means.
Well, when you think about being dehydrated, you're just, it's beyond my mouth is dry, right? Like I'm feeling, when you're dehydrated, you're feeling it physically, right? You can't breathe as well when you're dehydrated. Sometimes you have aches and pains when you're dehydrated, right? Sometimes you have to go to the hospital to get an IV, to get liquids because you're so dehydrated. It can affect your organs. It can shut stuff down, right? It's dangerous to be dehydrated. And that's how I felt. I felt like it took a lot for me to kick my legs out of the bed and stand up in the morning, right? I didn't know what to expect when I turned on the news or what was going to hit my news feed when I opened my phone. And so I felt very much like, and I felt not just as an individual, but I definitely felt this connectedness to the Black community as a collective. So it wasn't just me that felt dehydrated. I felt this connection to the collective that was potentially feeling the same way and feeling the same things. And so I wanted to have a place where we could become hydrated. And so when we were creating the app, it became that for me. I would sit outside and find a place in the sun, and the meditations, I was writing them, they were just flowing. And it felt like I was drinking, like I was hydrating my soul as I was creating this, and pulling my daughters into it was just such a rich experience. And having them come over, and my recording studio is my closet. Oh, we got a little closet. We got
Oh, listen, that's where most people start. Be real clear. People act like they got these huge studios. When I first started reading about podcasts years and years ago, folks didn't have, first of all, we didn't have the money to build a studio, and people like, go into your closet and start work. I love your transparency, because again, as you start to grow and see, it's the quality of what you have. And the fact that you're sharing your story, going into your closet, going into the basement, garage, wherever it is, it's the message that you're putting out there. I think that's very important.
And I think also, if you know your why, if you know why you're doing something, you'll figure out the what. You'll figure the what out. So if I got to use my closet for now to record some meditations, to get it to my community, to help uplift and release some sort of a moment that is burdensome for them, it's absolutely worth it. And so having my daughters be a part of that was such a
that had to be beautiful
for me. It was such a beautiful time, and really feeling really proud of what we put out, and feeling proud of listening to my intuition to make it free, and really being guided by intuitively, and also by my ancestors, and feeling this like, no, this is a full circle moment for you, Katara. You had Black women step up for you, right? In a moment where I was abandoned, in a moment where my white mother said, I can't do this. They stepped up for me. And this felt very much like my moment to step up for Black women in this season in our society.
I love that, Katara. That is a great way to wrap up this section of the show, this part of the show. That was so poetic to really elevate the women in your lineage that celebrated who you are. I appreciate you for your transparency. The beautiful part about working with your girls is amazing, because I have 2 daughters. How can our listeners get in contact with you, and how can they get access to the app?
Yeah, the app is called Exhale. You can go to the Apple Store and just put in Exhale. You can put in Exhale BIWOC, BIWC, Black Indigenous Women of Color. It'll pop right up. So you can download it for free. You can also go to Google Play, same thing, search Exhale, download it for free, access all the pages for free. Also follow us on Instagram at Exhale App. We also have our site, exhalesite.com. So exhale. You can also find me, Katara McCarty, kataramccarty.com. There's actually resources for Black Indigenous women of color, therapy resources, all kinds of resources on there besides the app that you can access on my website. Yeah, do all the things. Follow us.
She is everywhere. I love it. So my final question for this section is, how does Breonna Taylor's decision depict the critical need for an app like Exhale? Just using the Breonna Taylor decision as an example.
Yeah, it's another confirmation that Black women are unseen, unheard, are not valued in our society, at the bottom of the barrel. And it was, again, another confirmation that I wanted to have a brave space for us to go to as Black women, to really sit with ourselves, to really manage our stress, our anxiety, to unpack our trauma, and to really tap into our power, right? Like, while that decision was made, many of my colleagues and I were not surprised by the decision, because we know how we're viewed in our society as Black women. Women were not valued. And, it was like, okay, yeah, this is why I have the app. Go to the app. I actually sent it to Breonna Taylor's mother via Instagram. I sent a private message and sent the link to her, and she was super grateful to receive the link for the app, and was like, yes, I'm going to access this, because I think that we have power in our breath. And while that decision was confirmation that we're devalued in our society, I want Black, Indigenous women of color, specifically in this season of our lives, Black women, to know that we do have power in our breath. And if we can connect to our breath, we can connect to our power. And if we can continue to do that as a collective, I believe we really can move the needle forward for Black women, for brown women in our country.
Love it. Katara, thank you for joining me, but you cannot leave yet, because my favorite part of the show is what we call the Super Bomb questions, and they're brought to you by Mountain Made. And these are questions that my listeners want to know a little bit more about you. But the different part about this part of the show is you have to respond to them as quickly as possible. So are you ready, Katara McCarty?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
All right, so here we go. What's your favorite word?
Fierce.
What's your favorite quote, or maybe your favorite spiritual Bible verse?
Oh, gosh. Once, it's Maya Angelou, once someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time.
What's your spirit animal?
Oh my gosh, this is so hard for me. I don't know that I have a
That's why we ask these questions. All right, what's your superpower?
My breath.
What brings you to tears of joy?
My kids.
What brings you to tears of sorrow?
What's happening with my community.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
Gosh, more time to do. I don't know. I feel like I create pretty good. Maybe more time to be with my community, because we're so disconnected right now.
What values do you live by every day?
To be authentic and true to yourself.
What books have you given most as a gift, and why?
I've been given Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad as a gift. Yeah. So that the people that I give them to can unpack their own biases.
What do you express gratitude? How do you express gratitude for those who you love?
Oh gosh, usually cards, flowers, gifts, little notes.
If you could tell one person you appreciate them, who would it be and why?
I so appreciate Betty Waters, who opened up the doors of her home to raise me.
What's your morning routine?
Meditation. I go potty, then I get my headphones and meditate.
If you were in a Miss America talent competition, Katara McCarty, what would your talent be?
I think I'm a good dancer.
Hey, we're going to leave out of here with the dance. Turn up, turn up, turn up. I want to thank my amazing guest, Katara McCarty, for joining me. Check her app out, Exhale. This woman is amazing, celebrating Black, Indigenous women all over the country, helping them to what? Breathe and exhale. Katara, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
And I also want to thank my amazing engineer, my Haitian brother, Alexander Blanc, my African sister, Nicole Klempaka, and my brother from Baltimore, my musician, Supremacy, for our theme music, and all of you for listening. We could not do this show without you. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for donating for the show. I buy myself a coffee. Thank you for doing that. If you want to know more about me, go to DrLDS.com, DrDrLDS.com. And always thank you for tuning in, and do something for someone other than yourself today. Listen, some people miss the message because they're too busy looking for the mess. Thanks for tuning in, and you've been listening to Sound Bombing. Peace.
The Super Bomb questions are brought to you by Mountain Made CBD. Mountain Made is changing the CBD game by offering a line of high-dose CBD tablets at an affordable price. Their products are THC-free and third-party tested for accuracy, cleanliness, and potency. Their products, which ship nationwide, include Build for CBD saturation, Boost for precision titration, and Recover for rest and rehab. With 9 years experience in hemp and fitness, Mountain Made's founders are focused on creating a quality product to help those who live an activated lifestyle. Check out mountainmade.life. Again, that's mountainmade.life to find out more about how their products can help you crush life. Remember, their products ship nationwide. Go check out their website today and follow them on social media at Mountain Made. That's the @ MNTMADE. Our staff at Sound Balming uses Build before a morning workout, which helps to push our bodies to a whole new level on a daily basis. Try Build, try Boost, try Recover. Our staff is using these products to enhance our active lifestyle naturally, and we are crushing life with Mountain Made CBD, and you can too. Start today by going to mountainmade.life and ordering Build, Boost, Recover, or the multitude of other products that they have which will enhance your lifestyle. I promise you, you won't regret it.